everyone, my name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. Today I'd like to go into more detail responding to an assumption that I received a lot of while I was making my last video. So for full context, last week I made a video where I was responding to different assumptions that I had received over on Instagram, and it was really fun and lighthearted, and I enjoyed getting to do a little bit more of a personal video, and hopefully it helped you guys understand a little bit more about me. But there were two assumptions that came up a lot in various different forms, and in particular there's one of them that I want to talk about a little bit more. One of them was that I was little, and I feel like I've very thoroughly addressed that in multiple places, so I don't feel the need to explain that I'm not a little, because I'm not, and that's just a fact of life. And the other one was about pet play, and I got this in like every possible different direction. I got people who assumed that I was no longer a pet. I had people assume that I was doing it secretly. I had people assume that I just was into pet play or that I was a kitten. So that was kind of weird to get it from so many different angles, and I was thinking about this and I realized that everybody has a different relationship with my content. Everybody has a different time period where they first started watching me. I have people obviously who have watched me from the very beginning. I have people who are probably finding me right now through this video, in which case I'm sorry, this is probably confusing and entirely too personal for you to care about, but I have plenty of other videos that are more entertaining, I promise. And depending on when you as a viewer first started watching my content, you may have a different impression about my relationship to certain kinks or why I do what I do, and you may not understand kind of the full history of everything, because obviously I'm the only one who's really experienced that in its fullest. So today I would like to respond to the idea / the question of, do I still do pet play? What is my relationship with pet play? How is it important to me? And I think in order to fully kind of understand this question and answer it, it's worth kind of going through and explaining my whole history on social media and pet play, because I think in general people might enjoy this story because it kind of also explains a little bit more about why I started a YouTube channel. The quick version of this that I usually tell people is because I wasn't finding the kind of content that I wanted to find for myself, and I was definitely very mystified by the fact that people weren't talking about BDSM in an educational way in YouTube, because sex education is such a popular topic. And at that point I was not aware of Brittany Simon. I don't think What's the Safe Word was a thing yet, and so it was kind of just like this wide open space that nobody was really taking advantage of. But the deeper story behind that is I actually got started in terms of the social media world on Instagram. That was the first place I ever interacted outside of FetLife in sort of more of a vanilla setting, you could say, with other people who were interested in pet play, and I instantly got really into the community and involved with posting things and using all the hashtags and following all of the shops and all of the other big pet players at the time. You know, and even then it wasn't really like that big of a community. Like the big people were people who had over like 10K subscribers. Like that was the big deal, and I really got invested in that idea of pet play. And I think part of the reason why is because if you were searching for things about BDSM or things about pet play online, naturally the Google results sort of trended towards a lot of these older posts, usually from the 90s or the early 2000s, which had a very, very different idea of what pet play was and how people did it that wasn't necessarily reflective of my experience. I don't know how much that is the case now, and it's not necessarily a bad thing to be exposed to those ideas, but it wasn't something that reflected me. And I felt at the time that the Instagram community of other people who were kind of around my same age range had kind of similar styles of presentation, similar types and relationships to pet play as I did. Like, I wanted to kind of follow along with that, because that's naturally what you do when you're on social media, is you want to kind of fit in with other people and you kind of adopt this sense of community, and through that you kind of get an idea of like, oh, this is how people who do pet play, this is how they dress, this is how they talk, this is where they get gear from, this is how they style themselves. And I started to make YouTube videos, obviously to help people find information about things that I felt were worth sharing, and also because I realized through Instagram that I was one of very few people, at least who were talking about it, who went to public events, who went to classes, who knew how to find resources, who knew how to find books. And I felt that YouTube was like a great way to do that because I could reach out to people who otherwise didn't know how to search for things and were going to YouTube to look for them and weren't finding anything, same as I was. And so I was like, okay, well, if I have this information, I may as well share it with other people because it'll be helpful. And I did, and that's how I got started. And a lot of my earliest videos were things like gear unboxing and gear reviews and basic videos about Petplay and how to store your gear and how to find out what kind of pet you are. And as I grew in BDSM, obviously I grew into talking about more areas because as it became more known that I was doing things like going to conventions and going to classes and then I had a 24/7 dominant submissive relationship, people just naturally asked me like, hey, can you talk more about this? This is really interesting. I don't know anything about it and I'd like to learn. And I was like, well, there's nothing else out there, so I might as well talk about it. And so I did, and I was talking about it, but at the same time, I was very invested in maintaining this specific aesthetic that I had just adopted through having done things over on Instagram for so long, and that involved wearing ears and tails and gear and collars and things in every single video that I did. Every single video, I had to have those pieces of gear on, or it felt like I wasn't making a video, or I felt like people would be like weird about it, like they'd ask me if I didn't, right? Like that was the fear, was people wouldn't like, that it wouldn't be on brand, I guess you could say, to not wear that stuff because it was expected. And I don't know how much this is true now, and I'll get into why a little bit later on, but at the time there was very much this idea that like if you didn't have all of these pieces together, or if you weren't wearing those things obviously in photos, then like you weren't a pet player, or you didn't take it seriously, or you weren't really in a 24/7 relationship. And that was a whole big deal. And so for the longest time, for the first probably like 2 years I made videos, I wore gear in every single video that I made. I wore gear and everything I posted on Instagram. And to be honest, I think over time I kind of realized that that wasn't true to who I was or how I wanted to do pet play. I eventually ended up getting out of my first long-term 24/7 BDSM relationship, and when that happened, I kind of wanted to change the relationship that I had with pet play. And part of doing that, in order to kind of free myself from the associations I had created through that one relationship, because it does take time to get over a 24/7 BDSM relationship, I was like, well, why don't I just like not wear the gear when I make videos? I don't have to, I don't need to. And especially at that time, I had evolved so much through what I was doing. Like, pet play was very much still part of who I was, but I felt increasingly, certainly through exposure to so many people who do kink through, real life venues and conventions and so on, I was like, this is not a requirement. I don't need to wear this gear all the time. I don't need to put on this public show every single time I do a video of me wearing gear. And so I just let it go. And I was like, I don't need to prove anything to anybody. I can wear it when I want to wear it and when it's relevant, but I don't have to. And more importantly, I can keep it as part of my headspace and as part of my relationship. And what I really wanted to do is I wanted to let go of like this need to present a certain aesthetic and have the presentation of aesthetic on social media be more important than what it represented in my relationship. And I really, really felt that, at least for me, wearing it all the time and having it be something where I felt like I couldn't not wear it on social media without getting questions. Like, I wanted to just let go of that. I just wanted it to not be important anymore. I wanted to keep ears and tails and collars and things as what I think they're really kind of meant to be. And my relationship to it is like, these are meant to be tools to help me access a certain headspace and to help me have a certain dynamic in my relationship, and I don't need to share that with everybody all the time. And so I stopped wearing gear for videos. I stopped wearing it for Instagram, and it wasn't because pet play suddenly became less important to me or became less of my relationship. I simply changed the way that I wanted it to be part of who I was on social media. And I also really did want to be the pet play girl. And I think there is something to be said of like being proud of who you are and being shameless in your representation of yourself. And if you want to wear gear in your videos, you absolutely should, because it's, you know, it's on the internet, and if you feel comfortable doing that, you should. You're not hurting anybody when you do it. But I felt that feeling like I was required to wear gear or feeling like I needed to, like, kind of held me back from talking about certain areas of kink. Like, I felt like it might make people take me less seriously because it's like, oh, she's just one of those girls who likes to dress up. Like, she doesn't really know what she's talking about. And especially when I'm making videos talking about, I don't know, I haven't made a video on this yet, but if I made a video talking about like CBT and I'm wearing ears and a tail, like, are people going to take me as seriously when I talk about that subject, you know, when I'm presenting myself in that way? And it was just like that combination of factors of like wanting it to kind of be reserved as like a special thing in my relationship, cultivated as something that's, you know, for a headspace rather than presenting a certain image on social media, combined with like wanting to be taken seriously as somebody who can talk about other areas of BDSM. Like, that all kind of accumulated in the reason why I'm not as openly public about me still doing pet play as I am. You know, and you know, I don't really think anything about my relationship with pet play has changed that much over the course of time I've been on social media, but the presentation of it has. I think there's this idea that like, oh, well, she doesn't like wear this gear anymore, so she's probably not into it anymore. And it's like, no, I've just like decided that I don't really want to have it be like a big thing on my social media anymore, and I want to be able to like focus on other things. And I think a related idea about this is how much I talk about pet play on YouTube in general, or how much I make it part of my content. And I definitely used to do things where I would do like live streams on Instagram that were so much fun, where I would do pet play and I would run around and I would show off my gear and I would play fetch, and like all of that stuff was really fun to do. And I would do live streams in my cage. The reason why I don't do stuff like that anymore specifically is because it's not safe for YouTube, it's not safe for Instagram, and I don't want to get all of my stuff deleted or get strikes or whatever, so I just decided to kind of hold off on that. But when it comes to talking about pet play in a more general sense, my sort of feeling about it is, unless I were going back and revisiting specific topics that I've already discussed, I kind of felt like I've sort of said my piece about it in an educational setting. I have done everything from like the history of different types of pet play to basic pet play ideas, 24/7 relationships, how to get involved in the lifestyle, what a mosh is like, how to find out what kind of pet you are, how to incorporate it into your relationships. Like, I have done so many different types of videos on pet play that at this point I really don't know what else I could say that would be more of a positive than a negative. And this is just me and like my own personal brain. And if you have specific ideas about videos you'd like to see where I can talk about pet play that I haven't covered yet, absolutely let me know. But at this point, all I can really think of doing is like more videos showing like my personal relationship with pet play and like me actually playing as a pet and like me doing scenes and examples. And I don't feel comfortable doing that for any kind of scene related content on YouTube. It doesn't matter if it's pet play or vlogging or fire play or whatever. I just don't really think that that's something that's going to lead to good outcomes for my channel. Would it get me a lot of views? Probably yes. Would it probably get me a strike on my channel? Maybe, and I just don't want to go there. So all of that stuff goes over on Patreon, and I do have lots of videos on Patreon where I do show scenes and I do give examples and I do show like my authentic pet self as much as I can, but even then it's very, very hard to genuinely capture when you are worrying about filming something, a BDSM scene, and there are people who are much more talented than I am that can film like these complicated entire shibari performances all by themselves. I, however, am not that person. I am too worried. I am too anxious. I can't just like let go of the fact that there's a camera on me. And maybe it's a little bit easier for something like bondage where I'm maintaining like a human mindset. when I'm in pet play and I'm trying to go into sort of more of a pet mindset, it's very, very difficult to do that when I'm having to consciously think about the lighting and the framing and how much battery is left on the camera and how much time do we have left to film and da-da-da. And it's something that is just kind of like stressful to the point where I can't actually do it in a way where I think would give a positive, genuine representation, so I choose not to. But I do have lots of videos on pet play that I've done that are kind of smaller, little ones. They're small in the sense that they're under 20 minutes, you know, where I have shown scenes and I have shown examples of things, and I would like to do more of that in the future, but it's honestly not really a high priority to me because I have done enough of it already to where I feel like there's like robust examples for people who are curious. But even in polls that I've done, like when I've asked people like, what do you want me to make more videos about for Patreon or for YouTube in general, like I will always put pet play on those lists, and like people are way more interested in things like bondage and chastity and knife play and blood play, and like they're way more interested in like all these other concepts. And I always want to make people feel like their voice is heard and I'm making content that people want to see. But like if I'm getting 100 people who all tell me they want to see a knife play scene versus 10 people who tell me they want to see a pet play scene, like I'm probably going to pick the one that like more people haven't seen that I haven't done yet. And yeah, so I guess that's kind of my story of my online relationship with pet play and kind of where things are going. And it's not necessarily that I'm never going to talk about pet play again or that I'm not interested in that subject anymore. It's just I sort of feel like content with that area, and on my phone I keep an ongoing list of every single idea that I have for videos. I literally have hundreds of ideas for videos of subjects I've never gone into before, and my mind, it just kind of goes where it's motivated to. Like at this point, if I feel really, really inspired to make a video topic, that's where my head's at. That is where I feel impassioned. That's where I'm gonna go, rather than trying to sit and force myself to make something that I don't feel comfortable making. And you know, as my kinks have evolved, as my relationship with BDSM has evolved, pet play is still there, but I have room in my heart for all these other things as well. And again, I don't want to be putting myself in a hole of like, this is the only subject I can talk about, or this should always be the focus of my channel, because I find that to be really limiting and really restricting. And you know, it's always going to be a part of me. Like pet play was the very first thing that I ever found in BDSM, and just based off of that alone, I'm sure it'll always play an important role in my relationships and the types of play that I do. But I kind of just feel like it's, you know, it's on the inside, it's in my heart, and I don't need to prove to anybody that I'm still doing it. And you know, I know what I do in my personal life. I know what my 24/7 relationship is like, and it is very pet play focused. And even if my play doesn't necessarily involve doing like pet play scenes constantly all the time, like the heart of my DS relationship is based around me feeling like a pet. And that's what I have. And even if it, you know, doesn't look like having gear on 24/7 or buying the latest things or having a hood on or whatever, like the rest of it is still there. That heart is still there, and that's what's important. But anyways, I think that's entirely enough of an explanation. But if you guys have any more questions, any more comments, concerns, ideas for pet play related videos I haven't done yet that you'd like to see, leave that all down in the comment section below. If you like this video and you'd like to see more from me, if you haven't already, please subscribe. I make videos twice a week. And finally, if you really enjoy my content, if you'd like to support my work, please check out Patreon. I have tons of exclusive videos about pet play and about a bunch of other topics as well. Photo shoots, Discord, all of that great stuff. So check it out. Links down below. If you do already support me, thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. And until I see you guys next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.